Hey, it's Drybear. Today we're going to talk about how to defeat armored Nacrasena, the first guardian in tier 3. And I'm going to split this video into two parts. The first part will be a fast TLDR going over just the things you need to know. And then we'll spend the end of the video, the second half of the video, going into detail on how to defeat this, things you can do to read the body language of armored Nacrasena, and some tips and tricks to beating him. So let's go. But first, if you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live every day on twitch.tv/Drybear. Who knows? I might even be streaming right now. First, the TLDR. Just like normal Nacrasena, you can knock him down and sever his tail. However, since he is armored, you need to first break the tail armor and then sever it the second time. So full stagger him and then sever the tail with weak point damage twice in order to break it off, lower his damage output, remove some of his moveset, and slow him down. Next, when he burrows, it's a bit different from Nacrasena. He goes into the ground and then will stay in one spot and spawn adds. Kill the adds as they deal a ton of damage, and if they're alive for a few seconds, they'll start pulsing lightning around them, making it hard for melee to kill them. When he does burrow, he will always come out the same way. When you see him burrowing, you'll see him facing a specific direction when he goes down. So when he starts the burrow animation, he'll start facing a specific direction. This is the direction he will jump out of when he comes out of the ground. So he stays in his burrow location, and after maybe 5-6 seconds, he will jump out and then land and do an AoE in the exact direction that he's facing. So if you see that he's facing this way when he goes down, you know that you have safe zone in the other directions that he's not facing on the other side. Allows you to sit behind him and to the side and deal damage to the scorpions without worrying about getting hit by it. And just like Nacrasena, he does do an exit damage here and then a landing damage here. So keep track of where he's facing. Lastly, when he spits, it'll slow you down and steal your mana away. So just make sure you're not in front of him when he does the double spit. Now let's move on to the detailed section. We'll talk about reads, how to read his body language. And if you are someone who just wanted the details, you're free to tune out now. We're just going to go a little bit more in depth. If you haven't already, I have a guide on Nacrasena, the tier 1 version, and the moveset is relatively similar. A lot of the moves can be shared between the two. So if you have played against Nacrasena or you've seen my guide on it, they are very similar. First, like we always do, let's talk about his counter. It's the exact same as regular Nacrasena. He'll throw a little tantrum and back up a little bit when he starts that counter. So you see him go back a little bit there. He turns towards me, and when his arms just start flailing like a little tantrum, you know he's about to start a charge. He only does this for the charge. So you see him start throwing that tantrum. He hasn't turned blue yet. It hasn't started moving yet. But based on the fact that he was doing that, I knew he was, you could see me running towards his face here. So I knew he was going to start the counter animation. So here it is a few times. You can see him. He backs up, starts throwing a tantrum, and then goes forward for the counter. Keep in mind that he can dash twice in a row. If he does dash twice in a row, he'll do the first dash, go across your screen. And then when he gets to the second location, so you'll see him off screen here, he'll actually stop here, and then he'll lift his hands up into the air, signifying that he's about to go again. It's the same animation that he uses, or very similar to, right before he jumps. But if you just saw him cross the screen with a dash, he stops and then he raises his arms like he does here. It means that he's about to dash again. And at the end of the second dash, if he ever does this, he's going to go forward about half the distance, and then he'll jump and then land, and he'll do a landing AoE. So just make sure that if he does the first dash and you see him raise his claws like this, you know he's about to dash again, and then he's going to jump and do a slam about half the distance there. So let's watch that again. Here's the dash. Starts on the left side of the screen, goes across, stops, raises his arms in the air, and then dashes again. If he was counterable, he would have turned blue again for that second part. As with all part break bosses, you want to hold your weak point abilities if you feel like the stagger is about to happen, so that you can break the tail or sever or whatever it is you need to do. So if you ever get that stagger, based on who's in your party, you might have more or less stagger. But when he staggers, be ready to use your weak point abilities on the right spot. When he burrows, remember, as we mentioned at the beginning of the video, he will jump out the direction he burrows, but make sure you're killing these scorpions. These things are incredibly devastating. Their melee damage is exceptionally high. And then when they get the lightning aura around them, they can deal incredible damage and kill your teammates. And also, if you're a ranged character, make sure you're helping out with these, because there are a lot of times melee can get stuck dealing these and taking a bunch of damage doing so. They're easier when they first spawn, and since you know what direction he's going to come out of when he burrows based on the direction he's facing, so you see him facing this direction when he's burrowing, that means that these areas you can stand and just keep focusing down the tiny scorpions without being worried about him getting hit, because you know that it's going to be a frontal when he comes out of the ground. So kill the scorpions as fast as possible. Save damage abilities if you have to. He has the zap mechanic just like normal Nacrasena. He'll do a zap, and then sometimes he'll do a double zap, and then he'll electrify you. He doesn't have a grab because his tail is blunt and doesn't have that kind of stinger on it. A quick tip on the double strike zap, just to help you avoid it, as it is pretty troublesome, and I see a lot of people struggle with it often. So right here, you can see that I am the target for the zap. Now, a couple things on this. It does track until the moment it fires, which means that if you dodge early, he will still hit you mid-dash. And another thing that I want to talk about that I wish more people would use is watch as I'm being chased here. So you can see the laser beam. Let's see this one here. So you see how like this one is going. Now, what I like to do is draw a line from the boss like straight away. And I've found that if you are at least perpendicular to this line or above it, you can avoid the shock almost every single time. However, if your corner, your circle that you're going around him is too tight, which means you are going towards him too much and not following that circle, oftentimes because the hitbox here for the lightning is like this, a lot of times you'll just go right into it and get clipped. And if you get clipped once, you'll usually get clipped again by the second one and can die. So make sure that you're taking, if you have to, take a wider arc around him and make sure it's round. Don't cut into him and trying to go to his feet, because when you have this harsh angle, you'll usually end up getting clipped by the top of it. So let's watch that one more time just so we know kind of what that's like. So you can see I'm kind of keeping a wide arc that's equal to him, and you can keep running. And as long as you do that with full movement speed and you don't have a slow on you, you can avoid all the zaps. Sometimes they'll do a jump slam randomly. It has a very small AoE. The clue for this one is going to be when he lowers his shoulder. So you can see him actually lower his shoulder and bring in one of his claws right here. When he does that, he's about to jump, and he usually does it right after tracking to a new person. And he'll jump forward and then land. And as you can see, the AoE for this is tiny. I mean, it's smaller than his feet. It's very, very small. So what I recommend is I actually use this as an opportunity to damage him. I mean, you can stand within melee range and beat on him. You know that if he starts here, he's going to go the same distance in the jump every single time. The AoE when he lands is very small, so you can just run straight over and start punishing him. And I use it as a damage window most often, just because it's so easy to predict and so easy to control. And remember, if you're a back attack class, if he's facing this way, when he lands, he'll be facing the opposite direction. So if you are a back attack here, you're going to have to go all the way around to the back attack here, and vice versa for the head attack. Just like Nacrasena, he has a stagger check. You'll see him curl in. He'll move his legs out like this, kind of like this fan motion. He'll start kneeling down and channeling, and he does this for an extended period of time. This is a stagger check. So you want everyone to just start slamming using your high stagger on him. If you break it, then he won't do this explosion here. Now, one thing to note about the explosion, there are some dead zones. So you can see right when this lands, it does get this kind of wiggly outside damage area. There are some safe pockets. I found the best spots to be in his back right foot or his back left foot. There's usually kind of some safe zones in there. The closer in you can get to him, the safer you are. And then the further away you can get to him. It's almost like there's this donut in between that you can get hit by it, but it's much better just to hit the stagger check and break it. He has this lightning attack just like Nacrasena, where he'll throw a little tantrum, twirl his leg or his tail up in the air, and he throws a little tantrum over here. Then he'll slam it down, and it does deal damage right here. So if you're standing here when it lands, you'll take damage, and then he'll start pulsing AoEs all over the place. There will be guaranteed AoEs with this like pulsing area. So you see these here. These will be pulsing for a good 10 seconds maybe, and they deal a lot of damage. So be careful about standing in these. And these are always here no matter what. And then it'll just randomly strike all around him. Again, the closer you are to him tends to be a little bit safer, or you can just sit outside like the range using these as your guide on how far that's going to go out. But it's relatively easy. Same thing you did for Nacrasena. A new move he got from Nacrasena is if there's a situation like right here, and this is the easiest way to kind of think about it, is whoever has aggro, if they're standing behind him, he has a high chance of doing his backup attack, where he'll just reverse really quickly and deal damage along the way. The damage is kind of minor, but it does push you, so it's rather annoying. So as a melee class or a ranged class is standing back here, just know that you can see here's one player, one player, one player, one player. We are all behind him, and he's facing this way, which means the probability of him backing up here is pretty high. So just be aware that he might do a backup right there. And it does push you into a bad spot. Just be wary of it. Just like regular Nacrasena, he has the jump. So he'll look just like the charge before. but he'll raise his hands up in the air, curl his tail in, and then he's about to do the jump. And then he'll do one jump back up and back down. And then it's actually I think it's a smaller AoE. It's not too bad. You can actually sit on the range here and poke with damage. Just kind of poke him down. And then he has a chance of doing a second jump. He doesn't always do it. And he has a higher chance of doing it, I think, if people are in range of him or if he hits someone with the first jump. But it's 1 or 2 jumps, so just be wary of it. He has a tail strike attack that looks like this. He'll lurch up, and he usually does this while tracking someone, so it's pretty obvious once you get used to reading it. So you can see how he turned and started moving as he was turning. You can tell that he's about to do the tail strike. When he slams it down, it does a pretty sizable AoE, and it's actually pretty close to him too. I play ranged and melee, but my melee classes, I've been caught standing right here, just getting clipped on the very edge of it. So just be wary of that. And if his tail is charged up, it will electrify as well. So usually it's safer just to get away from him. Additionally, if anyone's standing to his side, he will do a side slam. He will move to the side first, and then he'll do this kind of AoE to whoever's standing to his flank. The easiest way to tell which side he's going to slam, other than just, you know, in this case right here, obviously I'm the only one standing to his side. All right, we have one here, and one here. So you know he's going to slam me. There's no reason for him to attack here. There's no one standing there. But you'll notice that when he starts this animation and slams it down, he will always first lean in the direction he's going to slam. So if you watch that again, he leans towards me, swings back, winds up, and then slams. Leans towards me, slams. Leans towards me, slams. So just watch where he leans before he does this animation, and you'll know which direction he's going to hit, assuming that there are people on both sides of him. And that's Armored Nacrasena. The big things are that I mentioned in TLDR are the most important. Sever the tail if you can. Kill the baby scorpions with high priority. Avoid the unburrow. And over time, you'll learn his attack patterns and how to avoid taking damage from him. I know this isn't some of these guardians. I want to do a guide for every guardian. And I know some of them are on the easier side that don't require guides, but I know there's also people out there. There's new players joining every single day, and I want to make sure that those people have resources available that help them do and learn new guardians, especially if they're new to this kind of game. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.